about the session is about managed stress, managed life, where we will take you through a holistic stress management uh, session. But before that, a little about Kotika Health and Kohil. Kohil.ai is our smartphone-based wellness management platform. What Kohil tries to do is create a meaningful impact on human health and well-being, thereby creating healthier lifestyles. Now, how does Kohil do it? It uses smartphone as a key enabler to drive real-time and quantitative measurement of your vital health indicators. But we do this in a non-invasive way at the point of care setting. The Kohil solution aims at making wellness accessible, affordable, and easy to use for you and for all the users by putting you at the center of the care setting. And it enables real-time access to your wellness data. The larger vision of Kohil is to support individuals and institutions in creating a holistic wellness space for population groups. So this is also an initiative in this wellness segment where we will talk about stress and the ways to manage it. And this session would be conducted by Sri Lalita, who is a corporate trainer with Kohil.ai. She is certified in counseling and art-based therapy, and she holds an MSc in psychology. Sri Lalita has keen interest in human behavior and has facilitated programs on various aspects of behavioral skills, thereby creating high-performing teams. We shall start the session now. Over to you, Sri Lalita.
Thank you so much, Rupalim. Thank you so much, as always. Wonderful. Great. So, very good evening, everyone. I hope all of you can see me. You can all hear me loud and clear. You can give me a yes in the chat box. Great. Wonderful to have you all for today's session. Thank you all for joining in. Even if it's like, it's 5 in the evening, I can still see that a lot of you have joined in for today's session. Great to have this kind of audience. Thank you so much once again. All right. Okay. So are we all ready to get started? You can give me a thumbs up or you can say a yes in the chat box, whatever suits you. Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. All right. Yeah. So let's get started then. So even before we kind of, jump into the slide and, talk about stress and everything, let me ask you, when I say the word stress, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Or what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word stress? You can share your responses in the chat box. Workload, okay. Jayavardhan says workload, okay. Work, okay. Ajit says commitment, okay. Inia. Tension, Simran says, okay. Time management, managing things, okay. Confusion, meeting deadlines. Wow. Yeah, lack of sleep. Yes, future. Yes, there are so many things. Health, targets. Wow. Okay, the responses are coming in so quickly. Yeah, stress eating. Super. Great, great, great. Wonderful. So glad to have these responses coming in. And I can see that you're so enthusiastic about today's session. Oh, coffee. All right, great. Thank you so much. Laziness. Wow. Great. Workload. Okay, work, health, finance, thinking about the future. There are so many things, isn't it? Right, when we talk about stress. All right, so what I want you to do is next slide please, Rupala. Yeah, Shiva says problem. All right, so I want you to take a look at this. In fact, stress has become so common nowadays that WHO, World Health Organization, has said that stress has been dubbed as the health epidemic of the 21st century. It's become massive, right? Nowadays, it's so common. Children have stress. In a world where, children are supposed to enjoy, you can see them being stressed. We are stressed. So we are all, sailing in the same boat, right? So I wanted to take a look at these statistics, a long, hard look at these statistics. They say that 76% of the Indian workforce indicate that stress has a negative impact on work performance, right? And everything drives or everything runs around performance, right? And when we are stressed, it does have an impact. And 48% of the Indian women admit feeling burnt out and stressed in spite of all this hybrid working environment and everything. In spite of that, women still feel stressed and burnt out. And approximately 1 million workers miss work every day due to stress. So this is huge, right? The numbers are huge, and you and I are part of this, right? That's where I think we need to do something about this. Yeah. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. All right. Okay. So let's have a great session with a lot of learning, with insights, and please feel free to ask your questions as well. All right. Thank you. Yes. Next slide, please. Yes. So we'll get started by understanding what is stress. Okay. By unmasking stress. Stress is in a very, very, let me put it across in a very simple way, right? Stress is actually a very, very natural reaction to any kind of a difficult situation that we face, right? Let's go back to our ancestors, right? When I say ancestors, I'm talking about the, the cavemen, people who did not, live in a civilized society like ours. So where they were literally hunters, right? So they hunted food. They lived in the forest, in the midst of animals, dangerous animals, everything. So what happened then was there was this literally like a feature that was installed in the human brain, which was able to identify a situation which was scary or which was dangerous. Like, for example, there was a dangerous predator or a dangerous wild animal in the forest. They were able to sense that danger was coming, right? And once they were able to identify this, or once they were able to sense this, they took action either by running away or ready to defend themselves, right? So their bodies were prepared for any of these responses, right? So that's a very normal reaction, isn't it? A very natural reaction when you face danger or a threat in the environment. However, coming back to the days that we are living now, right, where maybe there is not a physical danger like this, maybe dealing with a wild animal or anything of that sort, our threats are more psychological, right? However, this feature that has been installed in our brain has not gone away, right? It's still there. So what is happening to our brains now, whenever we face a stressful situation or whenever we face a threat or, a situation where it is difficult to process things, our brains start preparing our body for dealing with this stressful situation. And that is where, we talk about triggers like, the responses like the fight, flight, or the freeze response in our brain. So fight is to literally fight the situation. It could be, by talking back or by, reacting in a certain way. That is a fight response. Flight is to literally escape from that situation, right? You don't want to face that situation. You kind of literally escape from there. So that's the flight response. Freeze response is where you're like, you don't know what to do, right? So that's the kind of response that your brain, what do I say? It responds in that manner, right? So these are the kind of things that really happen. And nowadays, when I say the threat is more psychological, it could be things like a deadline that is approaching, that is fast approaching, right? Or dealing with a very toxic environment. Things like this could be the psychological triggers. So your brain understands that this is a threat. This is a dangerous situation. So you need to be prepared. So that's how your body gets prepared for dealing with such stressful situations. However, when these responses happen over and over again, our bodies get affected. When I say get affected, there is this stress hormone which gets released, which is called the cortisol. And when there is too much of this cortisol in your body, it definitely causes an imbalance, which affects the quality of your life. It affects the balance in your body, right? So stress could also be due to an imbalance between demands and resources. So like, for example, when I asked you the question, what does the word stress, remind you of? Some of you said workload, right? So that is a classic example of imbalance between demands and resources. So you're only one person, but when you have too many things on your plate to deal with, there is an imbalance, right? So that can be a cause of stress. Yeah. Is this all okay? So far, is it clear? All right. Yes. So let's quickly move on, and we'll remember this cortisol, okay, that we spoke about. Okay. So now moving on to the types of stress. What if I told you that there is also something called as good stress? Yeah. So we have something called as a good stress, or literally called as a eustress, where you know that it is a challenging situation, but you're not scared, you're not concerned, you're not worried, you're not panicking. You're excited for the challenge. You feel very, very energetic. You feel ready to take on the challenge, right? And give it your best, considering whatever the circumstances are. Like, for example, take a cricket match. When the bowler has to bowl and he needs that crucial, that he needs to take a wicket there, right? And the pitch conditions are not great, yeah, or probably it's raining, it's just started to drizzle and the conditions have become not so favorable. In spite of these conditions, right, if the bowler is able to give his best and get that wicket, that would be eustress, right? So that's a positive stress, and that is what we are all aiming for. So that's when we say, when life gives you stress, choose eustress over distress, right? This is the positive side. So when we are under these positive conditions, so there is always this, there is this flow state, or what we call as the optimal stress levels. So we need a little bit of stress in order to be able to function at our best. That is what we are trying to understand over here. So little stress is really good for us. Yeah. And once we arrive, or once we reach this optimal stress, we also have something called as a flow state, being in the zone where you're focused. There is so much of clarity. There is so much of energy. You're literally very, very sharp, right? So, and you don't even realize that time has gone by and you're giving your best. That's the flow state, right? And then we have something called as a peak performance, where you reach, like, your highest state of performance, where you're able to give like the best performance. Yeah, so that's the peak performance, the higher productivity. And all of this can happen only when you are in that positive state, or rather the good stress, the eustress that we were talking about, right? On the other hand, we have something called as a distress, I think, which this is something that we are all familiar with, right? Where we feel inadequate, we feel irritated, anxious, right? And things are not looking great here. You feel overwhelmed, you feel helpless, you kind of get stuck in the loop. So this is where we have three kinds of distress, right? So one is acute, episodic, and the other one is chronic stress. So acute stress is when you have some kind of a change that is happening in your life, right? It could be a change of job, or it could be a change in lifestyle, change in habits, change in diet, all right? It could be any kind of change that is causing you stress, right? That is acute stress. Episodic stress is where there are like two things coming one after the other, right? Like, have you ever experienced this? You're just dealing with a problem, and then when you feel, yeah, this is over, there is something else coming up, right? So one after the other, there is something or the other which is causing you a lot of stress. That is known as episodic stress. And chronic stress is where this is more long term, right? So examples could be dealing with a terminal illness, or maybe, you're working in a job where you don't feel that you are giving your, that the work that you're doing is suiting you, or, serving your purpose, right? So things like this can lead to chronic stress, right? So these are the three types of stress. So try and see which kind of stress you are experiencing right now. If you wish, you can even share it in the chat box with me. All right. I hope you're okay with this. The types of stress, eustress and distress. Okay. All right. Next step, the next slide. Okay. So we spoke about what is stress, right? And then we also spoke about the types. Now we talk about
गाड़ी आप ले जाओगे, आप ले गए भैया? चलो
okay.
I'll just अरे कहीं से वो ला सकते हो कि रास्ते में अगर दिख जाता है तो खीरा या फिर गाजर? अरे ज्यादा थोड़ा अगर दिख जाए तो ले आना, सैलेड में कुछ है नहीं खाने के लिए, इसलिए बोल रही थी.
I think somebody needs to mute themselves.
I think it's muted. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So now we talk about the impact of stress. So the stress that we experience can have its impact in three different areas: body, feelings, and behavior. Right. So in terms of body, this is how it really shows up in the form of headaches or, skin issues, fatigue, obesity. Right. So these are the effects of stress. Right. And in terms of feelings, that sense of anxiety, sense of overwhelm, you feel that, that sense of helplessness. You lose focus, you lose motivation. So these are, it shows up in terms of feelings. And it also manifests in behavior, in our behavior, the way we behave, right? It could be overeating. I think one of you did mention this in the chat box. Overeating. Yes, overeating, or it could even be undereating. Emotional outbursts. You just kind of, you burst out in a given situation, right? Or it could even be compulsive shopping, where you tend to distract the mind to do something for a very short period of time. It's very temporary, right? Same thing to do with addictions, right? And some of us like to build a wall around ourselves and say, okay, fine, I don't feel like, facing anyone. That's social withdrawal. And overall, the inability to enjoy life. So all of these things can lead to a burnout situation, right? A burnout, total burnout. So these are the impacts of stress on our body, feelings, and behavior. Yeah, right. So we spoke about the cortisol levels when we were understanding what is stress. I said cortisol, our body secretes a stress hormone called as a cortisol. So let's take a look at this. When we have high cortisol levels, right, it leads to lower cognitive functioning, right? And what is this cognitive functioning? Cognitive function is nothing but it includes your attention span, your attention, your memory, your learning, thinking, reasoning, problem solving, and decision making. Have you ever experienced this when you're under extreme conditions? You just can't think clearly. Your memory fails you. You can't pay attention. You tend to make a lot of mistakes, right? You can't think, reason, and come up with a decision. So these are the effects of stress. Yeah. So high cortisol levels brings down your cognitive functioning, right? And same way, low cortisol levels also lowers your cognitive functioning. Now we go back and connect it to the positive stress that I was talking about, the eustress, right? So when, or rather, I mean, let's talk about that later, but then look at it this way. When we feel demotivated, when we feel, bored, we feel that, the kind of things that I'm doing, I'm really not enjoying, right? You're just on this autopilot mode, right? So that is when there are low cortisol levels. So that is when it leads to lower cognitive functioning. You feel dull, you feel bored, you feel lethargic, right? And when there is moderate cortisol levels, then you have average cognitive functioning, which I think is what we all need, right? So we don't have to be superhumans. We can have average cognitive functioning and still function at our best, right? Okay. All right. Yes. So now let's take a look at causes of stress. So here, a life situation or an event that causes us to feel stressed. We spoke about this, right? We spoke about some situations, and we also spoke about cortisol. So when we look at, stressors or what causes stress, we can classify them into internal stressors and external stressors. And both of these kind of stressors have the same impact, physical and psychological impact, whether in terms of your body or your emotions and your behavior, it has the same impact. Okay. So now let's take a look at what these internal and external stressors could look like. Yeah. So we have a few points mentioned over here in terms of external stressors. Like some of you mentioned, workload could be one of the external stressors, which is causing you a lot of stress. Long working hours, conflicts within the team, or it could be even personal, right? In your personal front, you could be experiencing certain relationship issues. So that could also be a source of stress. Constant changes, dealing with constant changes in the environment that you live in or in the office, all of this could also be a source of stress. Lack of support, right? Lack of support could be another one. Personal loss. Yeah, so that is also something that all of these are factors which could be classified as external stressors. Coming to internal, this is more within you, right? So having high expectations of yourself, right? Fear of change, negative self-talk. Have you had this constant inner voice telling you, you can't do this, you can't, you're not good enough, or what will people think if you do this, or if you say this? This constant negative self-talk can be, again, an internal stressor. Low self-esteem, and also negative patterns of behavior. So negative patterns of behavior could be, reacting in the same way again and again, right? Without making any kind of changes to how you behave in a certain situation, right? So these could be some of the internal stressors. Yeah. So take a look at this. People who have high expectations believe that they are perfectionists and want everything to be like, go right. Everything needs to be perfect, but that can actually lead to a lot of stress, because everybody is not the same, right? Everybody doesn't function at that standard, right? And when their co-worker or when their team members don't perform according to their expectations, then again, that could be a source of stress. I'm just giving you a simple example, right? I'm sure you'll be able to relate it to a lot more. Okay, all right, next slide, please. Okay, so taking a look at how to manage these stressors. Yes, we all understand that we have stress. We have stress in our lives. There are situations which cause a lot of stress. It can be challenging at times. We can't really do away with those situations, right? We can't really completely eliminate those circumstances from our life. But what we can do is we can develop certain coping mechanisms in order to be able to deal with those stressful situations. And here we have given you a few points, a few guidelines, right? So one is, first of all, to acknowledge people and situations. So when we say acknowledge people and situations, I think the first step here is to accept that, yes, it is a difficult situation, or yes, I am dealing with a difficult person. What can I do about this? Right? So first thing is to acknowledge and accept that, yes, this is going to be difficult, right? Next comes pick your battles, right? So once there is acceptance and once there is acknowledgement, then you try and see whether this particular issue or this particular problem is within my control or not. So I can do something about what is there within my control. But if something lies beyond my control, there is nothing much that I can do. So we don't have to, we don't have to deal with everything that is coming our way. We can choose to pick our battles. And that way, it can probably, save you a lot of stress, right? Have you noticed at times we tend to we go out of the way to deal with certain challenges, but then knowing that there is nothing much that we can do to change the other person, right? We can only guide them. We can help them out to a certain extent, but if they don't, if they are not willing to change, then there's nothing much that you can do, right? So picking your battles wisely is an important step, right? The next one is to cultivate resilience. I feel this is one of the biggest skills that we all need to develop. In fact, teach such skills to children, right, as well. So resilience is the kind of strength, the mental strength that we need in order to deal with a situation, right? So the ability to bounce back, even if things are not going in a certain way, right? So the ability to bounce back. So this kind of mental strength to deal with situations by coming up with coping strategies, or maybe, a solution-focused approach is also something that we can look at. How can we sort out this? How can we deal with this problem, right? And solution-focused coping. So looking at it with a solution-focused mindset, right? And not looking at it, okay, we have a problem. It is a problem, so there's nothing much that we can do. Instead of looking at it this way, can I see, is there something that we can do about it, right? Solution-focused coping. And the next one is to fill your cup. This is where we talk about taking care of ourselves, right? The self-care part, right? We go around, dealing with so many things on a day-to-day basis. But what do we do to fill our cup? What do we do to take care of ourselves, Is there something that we do to energize ourselves, to feel, to kind of ground ourselves and feel good? Do we do something? No. So there's always this nice thing that I generally say. You can't really give anything out of an empty cup unless and until you are happy, unless and until you are happy and contented. You can't really give anything out of your empty cup, right? It's important you take care of certain things from your end in order to be able to help others, right? So that's something for us to ponder about. Okay, all right, yeah. So now moving on to the optimal stress part. So we spoke about the cortisol level there, right? So here I want you to take a look at this graph, this bell curve, and see which zone you generally fall under. So here we have the bore out zone towards the left. We have the burnout zone towards the right. And then the optimal zone is just right at the center, right? And you can look at the descriptions for each of these zones here. So I told you, when you don't have anything challenging, life is just going without any, without any challenges. You don't feel motivated, you don't feel purposeful, you're bored, you're exhausted, or rather not even exhausted, you're feeling lethargic, you're kind of laid back, right? There's absolutely no motivation. So that's the bore out zone, right? And the burnout is just the opposite. You feel extremely anxious, overwhelmed, exhausted. You're kind of panicking at the drop of a hat. So this is the burnout zone that I was mentioning there. So high stress levels can be the reason for this. Remember, we showed you those that image where stress has an impact on your body, mind, and your behavior. So which eventually leads to a burnout, isn't it? So this is the zone that I was talking about. And then you have the good zone, where we are talking about having just the right amount of stress in order to be able to perform at an optimum level, right? And this is where you feel extremely creative, you feel focused, you feel energized, you feel sharp, there is a lot of clarity, you feel motivated, right? You feel you want to take up that challenge, you feel you're ready to take on that task, right? So that's the kind of good zone that we need to be in, which is nothing but the eustress that I was talking about earlier, right? And when we are in this good zone, and why am I talking about being in the good zone, right? So it definitely improves your brain power, it improves your memory, it improves your sleep, there is better focus, there is better resilience, right? And there is this motivation to succeed. And that is why when we have so many benefits of being in the right zone, right, or having optimum levels of stress, it is really important for us to regulate our stress levels, right? It's very, very important to regulate it. Whether you're in the bore out zone or in the burnout zone, you need to be able to regulate your stress levels in order to bring it to the optimal zone, right? In order to perform at this level. Yeah? Yes. Okay. So this is where we come to, when we talk about regulating stress, we talk about holistic stress regulation, right? So a lot of times people just say, have a good, balanced diet, right? Or just sleep well. It's just not about that, right? You need to take care of it from different aspects. And that is where, when we spoke about how stress can have an impact on your body, mind and behavior, right? So here, when we talk about stress regulation, we talk about having balanced food, which is nourishment for your body, right? Exercise, moderate exercise, movement, any kind of movement, natural movement, right? Muscle relaxation and restful sleep, right? Whether you're sleeping 6 hours or 8 hours, your body needs whatever your body is okay with. So some of us just need about 6 hours, some of us need about 8 hours. So go with what your body is telling you. A good restful sleep is what you need for the next day to be able to function at your optimum level, right? Okay. And when we talk about breath, so any kind of breathing will help you regulate your stress levels. So here we have mentioned mindful breathing, box breathing, and abdominal breathing. So these are the 3 breathing techniques which can actually help you regulate your stress levels. right? When we talk about yoga, we have this pranayama and everything. What are they? It's nothing but breathing techniques which help you regulate your stress levels, right? And then you have the mind, right? Living in the present or live in the present. So a lot of us, I think one of you did mention thinking about the future is stressful. So all of us do that, right? We keep thinking too much. We overthink about our future. And that itself is a cause of stress. What is going to happen like 1 year from now or 2 years from now? What is it, right? So our minds are constantly thinking. It's like literally in that whirlwind of thoughts, right? And that creates a lot of imbalance in your body, right? And then cultivating optimism, looking at the brighter side of things. Yeah, there are certain things which I cannot do anything about. I cannot change. But yeah, sure, I will explain that, Saubhagya, right? So there are certain things that we can't really change, but can I do something about what is within my control, right? Looking at it optimistically, right? To reflect and meditate. This is something that I do all the time, right? And trust me, it has a lot of, it helps you come up with insights, yeah, to reflect on certain things that have happened in the past, or maybe, even otherwise, to reflect on your day. If something did not go right, think about why did it not go right? What did I do? Or what could I have done differently in order to make the situation better? Right? Probably I should not have said something such a nasty thing to my colleague, right? Maybe that was the trigger for her to react back, right? To react in such a manner. That is reflection, right? It could also be in the form of meditation. Yeah, if you're, if you're if it's your, if you feel that meditation can really help you, doing a short meditation can actually help you regulate your stress levels as well. Find your glimmer, right? Do something that you really like, yeah, something that you enjoy, which helps you get out of that, the daily routine, or maybe, things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Doing something different could really help you relax your mind. Like for me, I believe I believe colors and drawing and painting really calms me down. And that's something that I do all the time. And I love doing Zentangles because it kind of brings you into that flow state. For me, at least for me, it brings me into my flow state. And I just forget how much time has passed, right? And seeking support. So this is something very important. We all feel that we can deal with our own challenges. I'm okay, I can deal with this all by myself. That's not the truth. Yeah, we can definitely learn to ask for help, whether be at the office or at home. So learning to ask for help is something that we all need to start taking more seriously. Yeah, and we don't have to be ashamed to say that, you know what, I am stressed and I need your help with this. In fact, it requires a lot of courage to be able to come up and say, look, you know what, I am struggling. I need some support. I need some help. It requires a lot of courage to be able to do that. And if we can express ourselves, trust me, it's going to be a lot easier for every one of us here. Right? Okay. And coming to, I think Saubhagya, she asked me, okay, what is box breathing? Okay, box breathing is a technique where you breathe in for 4 counts, hold your breath for a couple of seconds, and then again, breathe in, exhale for, it's like this. It goes like a box. So breathe in, hold, breathe out, again, breathe in and breathe out. So 4 seconds, right? And you're holding your breath for a few, like maybe just for a couple of seconds in between. So that's known as a box breathing. In fact, you can find out more about this. There's a lot of, box breathing techniques on YouTube. You have on Pinterest, I've seen this as well. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'll hand it over to Rupalim now to help you with the, the application. So she'll talk about it. Over to you, Rupalim.
Thank you, Sri Lalita. It was such a thought-provoking session. I'm sure
Thank you,
everybody
Rupa.
must agree with it. Good to know about stress and distress and eustress, right? So a question to all, I am sure that you all must be in different phases of stress now and would definitely like to be in the eustress, right? Right, because that is the good stress, right? But how do we do that? I mean, how do we go about with it? So in your journey towards wellness, a small step can be with the Coheal mobile application. The mobile application actually enables you, see, until and unless you would be measuring your stress levels, you would not know where you stand, right? So the Coheal mobile application enables you to measure your stress and monitor your stress levels over a period of time. And not only that, it also gives you the Heal module, which is nothing but the, just go back to a slide where Sri Lalita was speaking about, regulating the stress for the body, breath, and mind. So when we talk about mindful breathing, box breathing, abdomen breathing, these kind of Heal modules are available in the Coheal mobile application. But the thing we do differently is that we assign you the Heal modules based on your stress score. And to get your stress score, you need to measure your stress score. So it is a very easy finger scanning technology that we use in the mobile application. With just a simple finger scan using your smartphone, without having to use any other device, you can get your stress scores in real time. And that stress score will determine which zone you fall into. Let's say we talked about low stress, right? People might be thinking that, low stress is really good. But then as Sri Lalita rightly pointed out, low stress does not necessarily mean good stress, right? It is actually a lack of motivation, lack of energy. So what we do is we give you the energizing exercises assigned to you so that you can cope up with your low stress zone and you can come to the optimal stress zone. Suppose you are already in the optimal stress zone, then you need to maintain it, right? So you'll be given the balance exercises. And if you are in distress, you have high stress scores as indicated by the application, you will be given the calming exercises. So that is where you can experience the different exercises, the healing modules in the form of respire exercises, which talks about breath work, the relax exercises, which is for the basically for the relaxing your body, and the reflect exercises, which basically is for your mind. All the three aspects that Sri Lalita spoke about. So this is a way to connect, assess yourself, monitor yourself, and heal yourself. So this is how you can regulate and maintain using the Coheal mobile application. Some other things that Coheal mobile application does is, apart from your stress score, it can also give you a snapshot of your heart health. When I talk about heart health, it will synthesize your cardiac rhythm in real time and give you your HRV, that is heart rate variability. That is the ability of your heart to cope with stressful situations. And it will also give you your resting heart rate. You can also measure your blood pressure, your SpO2, your blood glucose using only the Coheal mobile application, right? So how do you go about with it? You can download the app in Play Store or in App Store, or you can scan the QR code and you can download the application for free and you can use it, right? But don't forget to use the Heal module because that is how you can regulate and manage the stress.